In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of a real media product? The finished product, we decided to use the convention of a mask killer. We'd seen films in our research such as Michael Myers in Halloween, Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street and The Strangers. As you can see from the many examples of slasher films, we decided to use this as one of our conventions. This is how he would look like. In our finished film we have a final girl. This part, however, is not seen in the opening, but is seen in our synopsis, which is on our blog. We got this idea from films such as Halloween, when Laurie Strode, the final girl, is the only character left to survive. It's also seen in Strangers and films such as Scream. We thought this would be a good idea because it goes to the typical convention. This is the final girl from our slasher film. This is how she would look like. Most slasher films are set in a mysterious location, and we thought it would be appropriate to the genre to use somewhere which is haunted and eerie and mysterious. This is why we decided to use an old abandoned house, which you can see here, for our location. This creates tension immediately, and you can relate to this to previous locations, for example in Psycho, where you can see this house. The dingy and dark colours around it immediately create tension. To fit another convention of a slasher film, we decided to use the "Don't Look Behind You". These images here show an example of this. The weapon we decided to use was a knife. We thought this would be a typical convention, and it's quite easy to use. Here you can see Michael Myers using it in Halloween. What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why? A successful film distribution company is essential for the success of a film, so we had to choose a company carefully. Me and my group decided to use a small indie distribution company called Breaking Glass Pictures, rather than using a large distribution company who isn't likely to distribute a small independent thriller slasher like ours. Breaking Glass Pictures is suitable to our film because it is committed to distributing a wide range of proactive and challenging films from all genres, but including slasher films, which they have distributed a lot in the past. They also focus on distributing independent films like our own. No other groups doing this opening has chosen to use Breaking Glass Pictures, which makes our film a little different and unique to others. How does your media product represent particular social groups? I think our media product relates to teenagers and young adults, but mainly teenagers. These are typical adolescent teens, which can be seen in other slasher films. I think this is because teenagers have a very particular group, and often the idea is that they go out partying, etc. The teenagers who appear in our film are very much the same, although this isn't seen in the opening. I think teenagers who have had situations where they're coming back from a party, like the character in our film, with their friends, they can certainly relate to parts of our story, and our characters in the film represent teenagers in today's society. As you can see here, these are the characters that are going to appear in our film. The fact that slasher films are most viewed by teenagers, young adults, we felt it was necessary to add in the characters to be teenagers, so we could represent those watching this opening. Hopefully this way, the more teenagers who watch this, the more it's spread by word of mouth, and we have a successful film on our hands. Who would be the audience for your media product? The target audience for our opening is aimed at both sexes. The characters are both male and female, which allows the whole of the public to be able to relate to it in some way. If this opening, however, was only aimed at one sex, then it would be seen as biased and probably wouldn't be as popular than having it aimed at both. The target audience is for teenagers, like I said before, and young adults specifically, because the characters are of a similar age in the film, which means they can also relate and understand it better. We decided to have the age band up to 30 years old because it has been researched that teenagers to 30 years old are the most popular age at the cinema. We decided to stop the age band at 30 because it's not common for anyone older to go to the cinema as often on a regular basis. Especially our film being a slasher genre, the elderly are most definitely not in our age band because they would not be interested in a slasher film and would rather see something much less gory and violent. We also wouldn't include children because these aren't the typical audience for a slasher film. How did you address your audience? First of all, to attract our audience, before we did any filming, we thought it would be best to hand out a questionnaire to a range of age groups. We were not biased with the sex of the participants which we gave the questionnaire to. The questionnaire we gave out showed that teenagers the age band which watch slasher films, which gave us the idea for our audience for our media product. The most important thing was to meet our audience requirements, so as a group we looked through the results of our questionnaires and decided that teenagers watch slasher films, so the characters are better off being this age. Sometimes when the characters are the same age as the viewers, they are most attracted and feel their fear. Here you can see the results of our questionnaire. In the questionnaire we asked them for them to give certain requirements they would like to see in our opening. This included to have plenty of violence and gore, but we obviously had to keep this to a minimum. They also asked that we should create tension throughout the opening, which I believe we included well. All the points people made we looked at and took note of. We tried to listen to more results from teenagers though, those were the people we wanted to attract the most, but we made sure all points were taken and most of the requests are present in our film. As well as this, once our film was finished, we asked for audience feedback, and if we had any criticisms or tweaks we had to do to our film, we made sure that these were done sorted. Whenever possible, we changed our film to attract our audience as much as possible. We also added a version of our film onto Facebook. This gave us the opportunity to see if there was any feedback we had to do before the final film. This helped us a lot. Here you can see some of the feedback received, which was mostly positive. We didn't have to do much tweaking, but if we did, then we would do that straight away to meet our audience requirements. Most of our audience were very happy with the film, and those who made feedback were teenagers. Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from the full product? When we first did our preliminary task, we learnt basic techniques such as the 180-degree rule, match on action shot and shot reaction shot, which we revised to use in our slasher film. Since that first task, I have learnt to use 3 skills as much as possible and even learn new ones along the way. We used all 3 of these techniques at least once in our warm-blooded film. I've learned that using these 3 techniques has improved our film into the top level and that we should use techniques as much as possible to secure the best grades. These 3 techniques are good to use because it creates a good visual bridge which makes our films flow better. Since the preliminary task, I've also learned how to edit my film to the best level I could possibly do and direct the film so it resembles slasher films from other media products. I've also most importantly learned how to work in a group well and that communication is key when producing a product like a film. We had to discuss and decide as a group what our plot was going to be, the name of the film and the different shot types, etc. And it was all before we had even started the filming and editing. Luckily I had a really good group to work with and we got on well. This helped a lot because the result of the film proved that we had worked well together. What have you learnt about technologies in the process of constructing this product? I had had experience of using the Macs before, so I had a good idea of how to use them. But since constructing this product, I've learned an awful lot about the different technologies that are used to create a finished product. Being used to using the video recorders from our GCSE, it was a lot different to using it for A-level, but this allowed me to become more familiar with the technology and I got used to using the equipment very quickly and it became a habit for me to use. Once we had finished filming, we used the iMacs, which I already used last year. this had a program on it called iMovie. The programs iMovie allowed me to use ranged from editing, which allowed you to choose different transitions between scenes, etc. And we could also add music, which was big criteria. Over the time that we had to edit our film on the iMax, I learned how to edit and produce a final product, which was made to a very high standard. Now that I'm very familiar with the technologies used to create a product like a film, I'll be able to use it time and time again without any problems.